How can creators like us, who are new to building online businesses, who have high value skill sets, how do we scale our monthly recurring revenue, or MRR, to get us the freedom we desire? That is the question, and this newsletter will give you the answers. Be sure to subscribe if these are the types of answers you seek. My name is Boise Gordon, and welcome to episode 27 of Boise Talks Business. Episode 27. If you want to win business, you need a newsletter. A conversation on the importance of a newsletter and a quick guide to starting one. Hello, everybody. Hope everyone had a good weekend. I personally didn't do much. I like to relax on the weekends. I did end up playing tennis yesterday, so body's a little sore. But today, I do have something that I promised you guys. I will be going into discussion on starting a newsletter. Pretty much just the core structure of a newsletter. I'm not going to go too much into detail on the technical side, but definitely on the concept and creative side, we can talk a little bit about that. And then for those of you who weren't here, in the last episode, I talked about customer acquisition. I've spent most of my career doing it. And, lately I've been lately I've been looking for ways to combine my professional experience into the social media space. So I did talk a little bit about that on Friday. So be sure to check it out. It was a good episode. I think anyone looking to grow their business and land customers through their social media marketing could definitely benefit from that lesson. So without further ado, let's dig in. So why a newsletter, right? A newsletter is a super efficient addition to any sales cycle. Why? Because it prevents churn. See, what most people fail to realize, and this is pretty much a universal sales number. You can ask almost any salesman. At any given time, only 2% of your audience is ready to buy from you. Just 2%, which means out of every 100 people, 2 people are ready to say yes. They're ready to buy your service. Not necessarily from you, I guess, but they're ready to buy. So what normally happens when you pitch someone who isn't ready to buy? Well, for most people, if they aren't familiar with sales, that person is cast off into the abyss, never to be seen or communicated with again. It's like, hey, do you want to buy from me? No. Okay. And then they just don't come back to that person at all. And when they do come back, it's always, hey, are you ready to buy now? Right? Like, that's not a relationship. What you want to be doing is to have that relationship being built even when they're not ready to buy, so that when they are ready to buy, you're the first person they go to. Right? So a newsletter is what changes things. It is a piggy bank of prospects that may not be ready to buy or close to buying, right? It's still, going to be good for people who are on the fence about whether to buy from you or someone else, because your newsletter will provide them value. And if they can get value from a newsletter, imagine what they can get from actually working with you, that sort of thing. It just builds credibility and authority. So it's a multifaceted tool. But for now, I just want to talk about like non-ready buyers, right? Which is a majority of the market. And not only that, if they would buy, not only that, but if they would buy, it's likely they would buy from you first. This fact increases conversions immensely, and it's a great lead nurturing tool. Lead nurturing is simply that process of building the relationship with someone who's not a buyer. So why don't most people have a newsletter? Well, I can tell you that most people don't even think about these things when they're thinking about a newsletter. They're just thinking about how much work it's going to be or how much time they have to dedicate to it. And it can be intimidating to see yourself writing a 5-page newsletter. I'd say it's because they feel like it's time consuming and overly complicated. However, those are just misconceptions. A newsletter can be simple if you want it to be simple. When I first started my newsletter, or my first newsletter, it was called Walking the Blue Path. It was a daily journal of me trying to build this business up. And I would just write out, my thoughts, my opinions, what I learned, if I met anyone interesting. Like it was a daily journal. And so it wasn't super complicated to write, and I could get it done within 45 minutes, total, right? Things have obviously changed, but I made it simple for me. And that's kind of the idea of a newsletter. You just want to make it simple for you. And if you don't have but 30 minutes to do something each day or each week, then that's fine. Use the 30 minutes and make it feasible to do within 30 minutes. And if you have extra time, cool. You have extra time, but at least at the end of the day, you're going to get your newsletter done. And I'll speak to a little bit of why that's important in a second. So, the rules, right? So these are the rules for a good newsletter. Good company newsletter. Obviously, there's different recreational newsletters that you can have just to have like a hobby or something, but this is for the purpose of like sales and winning business, with the intention of winning business, right? So the first rule, it must be enjoyable. This one's pretty self-explanatory. If you don't want to do it, you're going to find reasons not to do it, not to get started. And it definitely helps to have it be about something you care about. Must have a CTA. So each newsletter needs to ask for something, needs to tell your audience what to do or what the next step is. It doesn't necessarily have to be your offer that you're giving, but should definitely have a CTA at the end, where you're letting them know, what they should be doing. So if you're giving them advice on starting a newsletter, at the end, you probably want to say, hey, you need to start your newsletter. If you're trying to offer your service, it's like, hey, here's this information that I'm giving you for free. I can help you implement this into your process. Book a meeting with me. It doesn't really matter what it is, as long as at the end of each article or newsletter, you're telling people what you want from them. That's going to build the connection, build the authority, and make sure that you're at least having a shot at winning business just from the newsletter alone. And then the third thing is must be consistent. So that's going to be daily, weekly, monthly, any interval that you feel is viable for you. Like I said, this is about sustainability more so than quality. You'll get better over time, but only if you do it on a regular schedule. So for me, I do 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? That's sustainable for me, especially with the length of these and the detail in these. I felt like 3 days a week was good enough. But it started out daily, right? And I cut back. So you can adjust these things. It's just a matter of, one, communicating that that's what you're going to do, and 2, making sure that when you do adjust, you are consistent or staying with the schedule. I kind of fell off last week. I missed like 2 episodes, I think. But I was fasting for 3 days, so my brain was just like not with it. I couldn't process anything. So yeah, that's important, consistency. And then must have a niche. So you want to talk about a specific category, preferably something you enjoy talking about, or feel like you can talk about in length. For me, business is that, sales is that, entrepreneurship is that. I enjoy it. I have a lot of information and perspective that I feel like many people don't consider, especially with my experience in doing it on my own and then having someone else help me, and then all these different life situations have evolved me into being able to talk about it for as long as I want, in any way that I want to, right? So make sure the niche is something you feel comfortable with, and it's also related to your business in some way. And then the 5th thing is going to be must provide value, and that can be entertainment, making people laugh. It could be education, giving people some form of information that they can then go and use, or it could be inspiration. So, asking questions. It could be exploratory. It doesn't really matter which one you pick, as long as you are providing some form of value to your audience. I would say the best thing to do with all of these rules is make sure that you identify who your audience is going to be, so that you're picking the best thing that's optimized for your audience. If you're a software developer, probably don't want to go with the entertainment route. Or maybe you could. I mean, I don't really know software people, but I'm assuming they're probably going to look more for the educational side of things, or inspiration. That's just me thinking from the perspective of what I know about software. So, make sure that you have an ICP picked out. Make sure you apply your ICP to these rules, and you'll come up with a bunch of ideas that can help you. So these are my 5 rules. Notice I said nothing about length of the newsletter. Spoiler, it does not matter. You can do 3 lines. Some people just send 3 links a day, their favorite article, and then they'll send a link to their favorite product online, and then they'll send a link to, like, I don't know, a Twitter post that they did, and that's it. It's just a mini newsletter. So there's multiple different formats. You don't have to be locked into a full-length article. It can be something you feel like provides value, and that's the biggest thing. Making a newsletter. Don't worry. I'll keep it simple so you don't have to feel overwhelmed. Like I said, I'm only going to go over the core concept of the newsletter, which is usually the hardest part for people to conceptualize. The actual technical side of starting a newsletter, for that, I would recommend Substack. It's pretty simple, pretty user-friendly. and it's its own social media site, so you can gain email subscribers just by using the platform. So, digging in. First thing you want to do is decide on the topic of your newsletter. Right? It should be relevant to your business or your offer in some capacity. Like I said, as long as it's interesting to you, it's good enough. And if you can correlate whatever that interest is to your business or your offer, that's just going to make it a lot easier for you to gain business from it. Right. The next thing is to decide on the frequency. So how often are you going to be publishing? It should be comfortable for you. It should never be a chore. The moment that your newsletter starts to begin to feel like a chore is the moment that you're going to experience inconsistency, because every time something inconvenient comes up, you're going to have an excuse built in to not do it because you don't really want to do it. You feel like you have to do it. So as long as you put it at a frequency that you can prepare for, if you do like a weekly newsletter, you have 7 days to write the next one. And if you actually like are accountable and doing it each day, a little bit at a time, you'll have no problem doing your newsletter, right? The problem comes when you try to do it in one day and then you don't have time to do it in one day. So also factor in your level of comfort with the topic you're discussing, right? So for me, I can shoot out a weekly newsletter and have it done the day of, because I have so much I can talk about with my topic and I'm pretty comfortable talking about it, right? If it was something less comforting for me, like software, I probably couldn't do a daily newsletter. Probably wouldn't even be able to do a weekly newsletter. I'd have to do so much research on each thing. I'd probably have to do it monthly, right? And that's pretty much the hardest part, is just deciding on a topic, deciding on the frequency that's comfortable for you. And then now that that's out of the way, this is just like topics. So coming up with the different things that you can talk about. So take your topic, right? That's your niche. That's the audience you're serving. The people who would like to hear more about that topic are going to be your audience. So identify the biggest problems within your niche, the biggest problems that people face within your niche related to the topic, of course, right? So what are those? I'd say pick like 8 or 10. Then I would identify how people are currently solving those problems, right? So, it's kind of like, oh, like global warming is a problem. Cool. How are people solving global warming? Oh, okay, cutting back on CO2 emissions and blah, 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 right? That's how they're currently solving it. Is it working? Yes. Okay. Could it be better? Cool. That's a topic. Is it not working? Cool. How would I solve it? That's going to be like the conversation that you have within each of your episodes or newsletters. So now dedicate each of your episodes to a discussion on one of those problems, right? Give your audience's perspective. So what are they seeing? Why is it a problem? How do they feel about the problem? You want to empathize with that. Then share your past perspective. So if it's a problem you've dealt with before, which most people will have dealt with a lot of the bigger problems in your niche, especially if you're an expert in your niche, right? So what past problem have you dealt with? How did you deal with it? How did you feel? Make sure it's emotional and it's captivating in some way. It's a story, right? And then once you have done all of those things, share a better solution. So share how you deal with it now, share how you would deal with it in the future, share how other people should deal with it, or why it shouldn't even be a problem in the first place. And that's generally going to be how you build your credibility, how you provide value, because you're sharing something unique that people probably haven't heard about before. Or maybe you're sharing something already known in a way that's more palatable for people, right? So this is more than enough to provide value to your audience and nurture leads. If you are new to writing, I would suggest you keep it short and insightful until you feel confident, and then you can make it as long as you want. The goal here is just to make sure that it's short, impactful, and it's captivating your audience's attention. And boom, now you have a core concept for your newsletter. Super easy. I recommend you check out episode 2 of Boise Talks Business for more details on starting a newsletter. I have a little bit more about the technical side, the branding, and the actual platforms that you're going to use to do it. For those who you may not know, I set up this entire newsletter / podcast in about 4 hours. It didn't take that long, half a day, right? So that's pretty much all I have today. I've already accidentally typed out Wednesday's newsletter as well, so I can kind of give you guys some of that. that newsletter, I already forgot. I'm pretty sure it's going to be about community building. Yeah, it's community building. So sharing a little bit of advice on how to scale your community pretty quickly. Community is probably the most important part of exposure when it comes to social media. So having a decent sized community can make all the difference, even if your following isn't that big. And P.S. If you are ready to scale your business, then I only have 2 slots left for April. That's where I set up your newsletter / funnel and get you prospect meetings through your social media content. It is not a course. We work directly together to build everything up. There's 2 spots left, and I close in 5 days. So end of this week, I'll be closing the April slots and getting prepared for May, seeing if I'm going to change up the offer, and just making adjustments there. So I like to save that last week of the month for myself and just building a strategy, right? So if you're interested, reply scale with details or for details. I'll go ahead and shoot them off. And if you're not a part of the newsletter, hurry up and do that. Go to Substack. Kidding, but send an email to waitlist@boisegordon.com, and I should be able to get in touch with you there, and we can see exactly what the next step would be. Cool. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.